Good afternoon and happy Thanksgiving to all of you from all of us here at Across the Fence. I'm Judy Simpson. The most appropriate way to begin today's program is to talk turkey. And in our case, we'll talk Vermont turkey. Vermont farmers will raise and process about 50,000 turkeys this year, and those birds will fetch about $2 more per pound than the frozen turkey at the supermarket. So our first stop on Thanksgiving Day is a Vermont turkey farm. Dave and Judy Adams started their operation in Westford in 1984. Since then, their son Philip has joined the family business. The Adams raised and processed 2,000 turkeys for this Thanksgiving, and Philip Adams spoke with Across the Fence's Keith Silva about when the turkey season starts.
Our turkeys come in roughly the beginning of June, getting into July. Our birds will come in as little poults, we call them. They're roughly about 3 ounces the size of a little golf ball. They're adorable little birds. We take them out of the box one by one, and then they go right under the heater. They'll get a drink and they start running around. And it's from that point forward, their feet hit the shavings, that they're running around looking to get into mischief. There's one thing about turkeys is they're always looking to get into trouble. They're a social animal. They like being around the people when we come into the barns to feed them and water them, and oftentimes they're underfoot, but it makes you kind of slow down your process, and you gotta go slow. You gotta work at their pace. They are a very social bird. They say they'll crowd right around you, and it's rewarding. It's actually, they're one of the few animals that really show appreciation. When you give them some fresh food or some fresh bedding, they're gonna go right to that and start really checking it out. They make like a happy chirp. You can tell when they're checking something out. They're curious. They're happy. So it's a good feeling to know that you made this animal feel good. For their short life, we try to make it as stress-free and as happy as possible. At about 12 weeks into the growing season, they're going to hit roughly 12, 13 pounds. And then every week from there, they keep going up. So it can be kind of a dance when we have a lot of birds, and Thanksgiving's very much of a deadline, a crunch deadline. That's the end date. So we need to make sure that we're on our game to get the birds ready for sale at the sizes that people need. It's not just a matter of hatching a bunch of 16-pounders and hatching some 20-pounders. It's a dance. These birds are growing every day of the week, and we need to make sure that we can fill the orders that people want, whether it's a 10-pound bird or if it's a 35-pound bird. We want to be able to produce that for you.
They will try to peck at each other. They're fairly inquisitive birds. So you have some toys that are like hanging up for them to not be bored, I guess.
Yeah, they're curious animals. They have great eyesight. A lot of all turkeys in the wild, especially, but these birds aren't very far removed, and they have very good eyesight. And on those bright sunny days, they'll find a speck of dust or dirt or something, and they'll investigate. And they don't have hands to do it with, so they do it with their mouth. And so they'll peck away at each other. And the toys really help to give them something to do, so they don't look to each other. They're looking for their toys.
What's it like in the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving?
It's controlled chaos leading up to Thanksgiving, for sure. It's a fast approaching deadline. We got to get these birds done, and we got to get the sizes that people have been requesting, because orders come in as early as September, late August, and before we're even processing birds. So we need to make sure that we're able to satisfy what our customers want. That's what's most important, is what our customers want. So yeah, once we see birds that are approximately the size that we're ready to harvest, they're at a good size range, they got a good fat yield on them, we'll bring them up to the processing house and see where they weigh out, and then we take a tally from there and see if, hey, we need to give them an extra week, an extra day, or we got to get them all done before the end of the week. Every year's different, and because we're dealing with a live animal here that doesn't decide to stop at 10 pounds or decide to stop at 15 pounds, they're in such a comfortable environment. They're gonna keep growing. They're happy as can be to be sitting in the barn next to their food bin. So it can be kind of a chaotic, and then people getting orders in, light, and there's not enough light in the day. it makes for a long day, but it's rewarding.
What makes a locally raised turkey different from a frozen turkey in a grocery store?
I think what sets apart our Vermont birds is the effort that we put forth into these birds. We put a lot of care into the well-being of this product. We may have a couple thousand turkeys, but on the large scheme of things in other parts of the country, this is a backyard farm. The grain that we get, it's a high quality grain, no antibiotics, it's all vegetarian. It's a high quality food that these birds get. The shavings, the bedding that they're on is local. It's from a local lumber yard, kiln dried shavings. It keeps the bedding real fresh, keeps the birds dry, and it just keeps the environment clean, keeps the air clean.
So the size of your farm, the effort that gets put in, is that what makes a locally raised turkey cost more?
It does. I think it does. We have a 5-person team here on the farm. It's safe to say that each one of us individually handles a single bird at least half a dozen times. So that's whether it's taking the little tiny pole out of the box and placing it on the shavings, to grabbing that bird in the freezer and handing it over the counter to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So there's a lot of care, and especially a small farm like us, it's the two owners, Dave and Judy, are right there in every step of the process and have a handle on it, have eyes on everything, so nothing gets by.
By the time Thanksgiving rolls around, are you done with turkeys?
No, we love turkey. We don't eat turkey very much during the year, so Thanksgiving is really special for us. It's kind of it's a celebration for sure. It's the culmination of a successful season, and yeah, we definitely we double down on turkey for sure. We'll always pick one out that's nice, maybe even two, do them a couple ways, but turkey is definitely the centerpiece at our table as well. Just know that a lot of love went into that bird, and we want you to smile when you take a bite and think of us next year.
Our thanks to the Adams family turkey farm in Westford. And one footnote to that story: today is Philip Adams' birthday. So in addition to happy Thanksgiving, we'd like to extend happy birthday wishes to Philip. His mom and dad told us that it never crossed their mind to name him Tom. Our next stop for Thanksgiving Day is a farm in the Northeast Kingdom. No, they don't raise turkeys. It's a dairy farm with a diversified maple operation. As Keith Silva reports, it's a farm where preparation met opportunity, and the result is a legacy that can continue for years to come.
There's been a farm on this spot on Route 100 in Westfield for over a century.
I was 13 years old when my parents bought this farm in 1963. I like mine and she likes hers, so we never have to worry about who's using which one.
Jake and Pauline Kuchar bought the farm from Jake's parents in 1970. Pauline has fond memories of those early days.
I would feed the hay and bed the cows, so I would do that type of stuff. And then as the kids got older, they started doing that. Or as I was getting more kids, it was more of my job in the house. I'm happy where I am.
The farm is 425 acres. They milk about 70 cows and have been certified organic since 2007. The maple operation numbers 7,500 taps. All the syrup that's produced is sold retail, either at the shop or on the internet. The Kuchars also operate a bed and breakfast and sell organic beef. In addition to the business they built over their 47-year marriage, the Kuchars are proud to have raised 6 children here. Their family has grown to include 11 grandchildren. Even though they loved the farm growing up, none of the kids chose to follow in their parents' footsteps.
None of them really wanted to farm. We told them growing up, follow your dreams. We followed ours, and we're still following them. So we don't have any, ill feelings about that. We encourage them, and they're all doing very well. They all have good college educations and good jobs. So yeah, over time, we talked with our kids who certainly would have, been excited if some had decided to do that, but they've chosen other careers, and so we're doing something different now for, looking towards the future.
Oh, I've always been interested in dairy farming. My mom and dad were never dairy farmers. I didn't grow up on a dairy farm. My dad worked.
Dave Myers came to work for the Kuchars in 2010. Before too long, Jake and Pauline knew that Dave was more than the average employee.
We thought, okay, this is it, you know, and he's doing it from the heart, just like Jake and I did at the beginning, and he's young and he wants to farm, and he's got that want to, you know.
He comes with youth and with energy. You know, I can see myself 40 years ago. That's our age difference, is 40 years, and you know, to me that's a breath of fresh air. You know, at 66 I don't quite have the drive. I still got the drive in my mind. When I get up every morning, I still feel 18 for about 10 minutes. And then in reality, kind of, yeah, the breath of fresh air that youth brings to an organization is something that's, you know, immeasurable.
Even though his children weren't interested in being farmers, Jake got a sense that Dave was. And as it turns out, Jake was right.
One night I was bedding in the barn and Jake came in and asked me what I planned on doing for the rest of my life. And I said, well, you're kind of looking at it. And here we are.
We felt very fortunate that we had an employee in Dave Myers who had good management skills and had a desire to farm. And so, you know, in visiting about that situation, Dave wanted to farm, and we offered him the opportunity to farm with us and become a partner, and it was a great thing.
A year and a half after their conversation in the barn, Myers and the Kuchers decided to go into partnership and form Missisquoi Valley Farm, which started on January 1st, 2013.
We formed an LLC, so we basically carved out the maple and kept that separate, and we put the dairy business in an LLC. We sold Dave a 25% interest in the dairy part of our business, and we're financing that for him. So the first piece, that 25%, is a 7-year process. We're now in year 4 of that process. And when we finish that 7 years, he will actually outright own 25% of the cattle and the equipment. And at that point, he'll have enough equity to either go to the bank and purchase the rest, or we might consider financing the rest for him. And at that point, we'll be 69 years old, so we'll be ready to sell him the other 75%.
When I was growing up and when I was 22, I told my grandmother, I said, by the time I'm 25, I'm going to have my own farm. And she said, well, you got to set a goal for yourself. And she said, that's half the battle won right there, Dave. And I don't own it, but I'm damn close. And I'll be probably 27 by the time I'm fully in charge. And that's not too shabby still. But there's not, I mean, even half of my friends that are my age don't have nothing, and they don't have no business.
I'm guessing about 5 loads out of that piece.
That's exactly what I was thinking yesterday when I was
see.
mowing it.
The success of the partnership will depend on many factors, from milk prices to increasing environmental regulations. One thing Myers and Kucher may have going for them is they're not related.
I think there's been a big advantage there. Just the simple fact that I'm not his kid and I'm not his grandson, to where, oh, yeah, we'll figure this out later, Dave. We'll do this, we'll do that. We discuss everything in fine detail.
I think you know, my intention would be the same if it was a son or a daughter that was in business with us, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, you know, if it's easier with someone who's not actually a family member. I'm just saying it's going pretty well.
There are a lot of opportunities out there where farmers are selling out because they haven't found somebody that they thought could take over the operation.
Bob Parsons is an agricultural economist with University of Vermont Extension. He leads UVM's Farm Transfer program.
All too often in family transitions, we assume some things will work out and we kind of brush over some things because it's family and we'll handle that when we get to it. When you're dealing with somebody that is totally outside of the family, they're going to discuss all the business arrangements. Jake is going to discuss how I'm going to get paid, when I'm going to get paid, and Dave needs to know, what am I going to get paid for my labor, and what will I own, and when will I own it, and what happens if we break up and I find an opportunity somewhere else, or we just find that we don't get along as well as we thought we would. Outside people will discuss the details because this is a business arrangement and they're not confined by family and personal feelings. If this isn't going to work business-wise, we ain't doing it. But all too often with a family, yes, we'll make it work. And families then later run into some problems.
When they come, they look at the birth dates. And,
Yeah.
Kuchar and Myers credit communication, shared values, and respect for one another as being key factors to their partnership.
I have the mentorship of somebody who has done this before and has done it for 40 some odd years. Just to get that mentorship in firemen is hands down, you can't ask for any better thing out there. Because, you know, if I don't know it, Jake 9 times out of 10 knows it because he's seen it, he's done it. I mean, that right there is like an encyclopedia to have at hand.
One of the things that I try to do as the older one in this partnership is to realize that to get from point A to point B isn't always the same route. I might do something one way, Dave might have another idea. I try to be as open as I can to that, and whether it's Dave and I or somebody else trying to do things, I think it's extremely important for the older generation to give some opportunity for the younger generation to kind of bring in their ideas, and it's interesting sometimes. Yeah, why didn't I think of that before? Things still get done, and be open to that.
The partnership agreement contains a dissolution clause, so if anything happens to any of the members, each one is protected. No one wants to talk about the inevitable, but Pauline knows it's just good business.
We talk about our death because it's going to eventually happen to all of us, and I need to know what to do with this place if he goes first. If I go first, then we talked about different things there. So we need to talk about how we are going to transition ourselves, into this. And some people don't want to talk about it, but it's something that we have to. And talking about things of the farm is not a problem.
Dave's advice for someone his age, or for that matter, Jake's age, looking to get into partnership, is to talk and be ready to work.
Talking to people's free. It doesn't cost you nothing. And that's what I've always been taught when I was working at different farms. They say, ask a million questions, it's all free advice. And I took that to full advantage, because you never know unless you ask somebody. But I'm more bound and determined and headstrong that I'm gonna make this work, and that's what you gotta be, fireman. I mean, you gotta have self-motivation, and you gotta sit there and say, I'm gonna make this work.
Pauline is ready to retire, but Jake, not so much. They want to keep the maple business and the bed and breakfast going, for now. The partnership has put the farm's legacy in good hands. And for Jake, that's what it's all about.
What were our options? Have a herd dispersal and have an empty barn? Or see some young person who's got a bunch of drive and the ability get established here and thrive? What more can you ask for? I mean, it'd be great when I'm in my 80s to drive by here and say, wow, look, I used to farm there. Isn't that neat?
There's been a farm on this spot on Route 100 in Westfield for over a century. And thanks to the care and foresight of the current and future owners, there will be for years to come. In Westfield, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Best wishes and continued success to Dave Myers and Jake and Pauline Kuchar. For our next story, Vermont historian Howard Coffin takes us to a place where most of us have never been, even though it's part of one of the most recognized buildings in the state.
So up we come into the drum of the dome, and when you get here, you find out that this place really is a lot bigger than it looks from way down on the sidewalk 200 plus feet below. I really get the feeling in this large space of being in something that is really old, and this is 150 plus years old.
First of all, you're struck probably by the fact the dome is all wood. This is a wooden structure on a granite statehouse. And like a lot of the faux finishes that are found throughout the building, this too had a faux finish on the outside. They painted the drum, this portion of the dome that we're standing in with the windows is what we call the drum of the dome. And the exterior has beautiful ionic column pilasters. It has attenuated windows that give you a monumental sense of the dome. Most important of all, it was finished off with a stucco-like paint that they created by throwing sand into the paint. The idea was this gray drum might look like the rest of the Statehouse and look as though it too was made of granite, but obviously it is not. On the inside, this raw barn-like structure is what we have instead, and it looks like a round barn, in fact, that has been plunked down on top of the Statehouse. Not a bad structure to have in a state like Vermont, where round barns were famous for them. To have a round barn on top of the Statehouse is maybe the virtue of this structure.
And of course, the minute you come into this space, what catches your eye is there's graffiti everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the names are familiar to me. I think many of them are pages who served during the legislative session.
There's actually graffiti up here that dates all the way back to the construction of the Statehouse, which would be routine. In other words, the people who, devoted their lives to building this building 150 years ago naturally wanted to leave their mark on it somewhere. So they were the first people to have graffiti up here. And as you suggest, the pages routinely are brought up here as a rite of passage to leave their mark on the building. And I think we could make room for one of Vermont's more noted historians to join the ranks.
Shall we see if we can find a space?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Howard. For our final segment this afternoon, we've gone back in our archive. Rebecca Gollin found a Thanksgiving Day story from 2010 that told us about raising turkeys in Vermont beginning in the 19th century.
Well, turkeys have a long history in Vermont. Back in the early 1800s, they actually used to have turkey drives from Vermont to Boston and Montreal.
Vermont's former Secretary of Agriculture, Roger Albee, heard the stories throughout his childhood.
They had turkey drivers. In fact, one of my great-great-great-grandfathers was a turkey driver, or drover they called them, driving turkeys overland.
Leading between 1,000 and 7,000 birds at a time, the drivers would sometimes coat the turkeys' feet with warm tar to protect them from the cold ground. Making good time, the flocks could cover up to 12 miles a day. It was a grueling journey, but well worth it for the Vermonters who raised the turkeys, and a particular treat for their customers.
It's a proud heritage that continues to this day.
While it's certainly easier to get turkeys to market today, much about the industry remains virtually unchanged from those early days.
We've been doing it for at least 30-some years, and it started out when I was a kid. We just simply wanted to eat a fresh turkey for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we raised about 25 birds, I think, at that time. Haven't gone to a store-bought bird since.
Hadley Gaylord raises about 200 turkeys a year on his diversified farm.
We operate on about 600 acres, about 250 head of beef cattle. We grow 100 head of hogs a year. Got 300 or 400 laying hens, and we produce about 800 or 900 meat birds a year, including the turkeys, with, of course, 13 acres of vegetables. Turkeys are a great addition to what we do. Good local food is just what it is. Good, clean food. And it tastes so much better than anything else.
Though raising turkeys is not a major industry in the state, it is a growing one. According to the USDA's Census of Agriculture, there were 77 farmers raising just over 36,000 birds in 1997. Since then, there's been a steady increase in the number of producers.
We're seeing a number of small producers growing. We have about 104 producers of turkeys in Vermont, and we have about 52,000 turkeys produced every year. And I think there's about $3.8 million of value there. It's not the biggest industry, but it's important because it establishes Vermont's brand.
Close to the New York border in Orwell, Peter Stone runs Stonewood Farm, one of Vermont's largest turkey farms. Stone says that he's seen a growing demand for local foods since his family started raising turkeys in 1987.
Their sales are actually been going up every year, and the buy local thing's good. We sell a lot in Vermont, around the area, well, from Burlington right over into New Hampshire. Probably over 50% go within 100 miles radius of us.
Stone's turkey farm is also diversified, but in a very different way.
So we own 800 acres. We grow 27,000 turkeys a year, mostly for fresh Thanksgiving. But we make turkey products. We make boneless breast, bone-in breast. We make ground turkey, which is half white meat, half dark meat.
With a slaughterhouse and processing facilities on the farm, Stone prepares his turkeys for market in-house. He'll process most of the birds for Thanksgiving, but will save some for Christmas, as well as the turkey products he makes in the off-season. Leading up to Thanksgiving, the slaughter plant will be running about 14 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's such an important time, Thanksgiving, getting everything slaughtered and getting everything delivered and getting it delivered to where it needs to be, and what they order and what they want and everything is, it takes a lot of work to do that.
That hard work pays off in the end. Vermont turkeys bring in higher profits.
Vermont has this reputation for doing things in the food sector right. And the turkey industry and the poultry industry is one example of what we do right and we do well. In fact, one of the things about Vermont, according to statistics, is that our producers get a higher price for their turkeys than nationally, averaging about $1.59 per pound, where the national price is about 59 cents a pound.
With numbers like that, the turkey industry is sure to continue growing in Vermont. Of course, we all know what's really important.
I hope people enjoy their turkey at Thanksgiving. I'm the one in our family who gets up early in the morning. I prepare the turkey, I prepare the stuffing, and I cook the turkey and I carve the turkey. And people apparently enjoy because they eat it all up.
And that's the ultimate seal of approval this Thanksgiving Day. In Montpelier, I'm Rebecca Gollin with Across the Fence.
Thank you, Rebecca, and our thanks to all of you for watching. I'm Judy Simpson, wishing you a happy Thanksgiving. I'll be back tomorrow with another special half-hour edition of Across the Fence.